When you think of Disney, you think of smiling cast members, spinning rides, churros, popcorn, the most magical things of all. But what you might not know is that there are some literally creepy, weird, and flat out bizarre conspiracy theories all lying underneath the surface. Some are rooted in fact, and others are pure speculation. From mind control to recycled animatronics, we are breaking down all of the most bizarre Disney conspiracy theories. Starting off with number one, we're going in a little bit more gentle. A lot of people think that wait times are fake. If you've ever been to Disney World, you've probably been in a line that was much longer than it said it was going to be when you first got in. At first, you might just assume like, oh, it's bad timing or maybe something happened with the ride, but a lot of people online and in person accuse Disney of lying about their wait times. Whether it's inflated or deflated, this suggests that wait times are going to be completely based on a queue management engineering system. This would mean things like crowd patterns, revenue goals, and even crowd control quality all go together hand in hand to help determine the wait time. Longer lines at certain attractions means that people are less likely to hop in line for that attraction, and they're actually more likely to purchase a lightning lane. Which, if you don't know, lightning lane is Disney's paid skip the line service. It also might mean that they're more likely to spend money at a merchandise location or a food location while they wait for that wait time to drop. And if people stay in that line while it's still long and ends up being shorter than what they thought, they feel like they've won and they have like a really exciting part of their day. While technically this theory is impossible to prove or disprove, it does lead to a really interesting question. Could these wait times really just be an inaccuracy or maybe kind of an accident, or is there a bigger, deeper meaning behind those long wait times at Disney World? Or is it just that that's where the crowds are? Lots of questions to be asked. We don't know. Our second conspiracy theory is that you're only ever 30 steps away from a trash can. Now this one might seem a little bit weird, but you'll be surprised by this one. When Walt Disney was designing Disneyland, he was absolutely desperate to make sure that he was not seeing litter and trash all over his parks. That's one thing that he really wanted to help set apart Disneyland from other amusement parks that you could go to at the time, because he wanted it to be clean and a family-friendly place. However, they were expecting tens of thousands of people to visit the park every single day. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that they're not littering? According to the legend, according to the story, supposedly Walt Disney went to other amusement parks during that time while he was building and developing Disneyland, and he would watch how far people would have to walk when they dropped their trash. Roughly within his conclusion and his observations, it was every 30 steps or so. So then the 30-step rule was born, and supposedly you cannot walk around the Disney parks without hitting a trash can roughly every 30 steps. Technically, there is no way for us to prove this without absolutely going and tracking and walking through every single park, which I don't think anyone has done, but if they have, let us know. It also is going to be pretty subjective based on the person, the size of their gait, how long their legs are. Adults are going to be able to walk 30 steps a lot more easily than kiddos, so it's going to vary. However, you can walk through the parks and see that there is some truth within them, because there are trash cans everywhere. Now, are there going to be exceptions and you can't find a trash can every 30 feet? Yes. However, within reason, this conspiracy theory leans on the side of truth. The third conspiracy theory that we're getting into is, I think, one of the most talked about ones, and it's that Disney controls the weather. And if this were true, I would literally be so mad at them. However, we can go ahead and, spoiler, say this one isn't true. This is a conspiracy theory that has lasted for literal years. It has been around for forever, and it's essentially that Disney has a massive invisible dome over the parks in Florida to control the weather. I'm pausing because, yeah, people accuse the company of controlling the weather. So they claim that it helps manage storms, sunshine, and just overall comfort for everyone in the parks. However, if you've ever been to Disney World in the summer or in a storm or in hurricane season, which is most of the year, you know that there's really no evidence of that. Disney can't control the weather, and oh my goodness, I know you're shocked, the weather is unpredictable. If you're visiting the summers, you really need to be prepared for hot weather and afternoon showers. You also need to be prepared for hurricane season, which takes place from literally July 1st until November 30th. So like a huge chunk of the back half of the year. That's like 5 months, right? Yeah, that's a lot of time. In the winter months, it gets cold. I know you guys kind of make fun of us when the cast has on big jackets in the winter, but it is true. It will shock you. It will really, really surprise you how cold it can get in Disney, especially in the mornings and at night, before the sun goes up and after the sun goes down. There are days, they are rare, but there are days when it gets very cold and you will inevitably end up buying a hat, a sweatshirt, and gloves, because I have had to do the same, which is actually why I just now bring my own. And hey, and you can buy this one and all of our merch right now online if you want to go do that. And then you don't have to buy one in Disney World because you're already prepared. I didn't even mean to plug, I love this sweatshirt. We're talking sweatshirts. Sweatshirts aside, this is always why we recommend to be prepared. Check the weather, bring the rain jacket even if it says it's not gonna rain. Be prepared that your shoes might get wet. It just helps kind of control your day if you know how to prepare, and if you're over prepared and nothing happens, then really you don't lose out on anything. However, if you're underprepared and something does happen, you're gonna lose out on some money or some time in the parks. So yeah, Disney might be magic, but they are not all controlling. Number 4 takes us to Disney's Contemporary Resort, because a lot of people believe that Disney's Contemporary Resort was built to be taken apart and that the rooms are removable. So it is actually commonly speculated that Disney's Contemporary Resort is almost like a puzzle, and that if one of the rooms gets bad, they can just slide it on out and, almost like a drawer, take it apart. However, right now, that is no longer true. The theory is so avidly believed, a lot of people will talk about it in the sense that it can still happen to this day, that people can just slide the rooms out of the Contemporary, but that is not how it works. This theory is really kind of broken down from how the Contemporary was built. Back in the late 1960s, while Disney was working on the hotel, they actually built each room individually off-site, and it was just like a little box, and then they would bring them over to Disney World and they would construct them in, and they would just kind of use massive cranes and put them all in place. Hence the kind of building blocks, like sliding them in theory. While that is true, it's not true that you can take them out anymore. A lot of people still believe that, but once they were put in place, Disney fixed them, they made them permanent, and now you can't just go slide them out. Even though that would be really neat if something was wrong with one of the rooms, it's just not true anymore. But it is how they built it. They did build it like that. You just can't take them out. Next, a lot of people accuse Disney of using smells to impact guests' emotions and spending habits. I wanted to like smell my Dole Whip candle, but it's not coming. Oh, there you go. And honestly, I can see where this one comes from. Have you ever walked down Main Street USA and you just smell the sweetest smells you've ever smelled in your life? The buttery popcorn is coming at you and you think, I need popcorn and sweets right here, right now. I've thought that. I want those baked goods. All that to be said, you probably aren't imagining it. Disney actually created this thing called smellitizers. That's a real word, and I don't even know if I said it right, but smellitizers. That is their patented smell-emitting system. Fun fact. These machines are actually placed strategically throughout the park, and they emit a pressured gas to kind of dispense those deliciously yummy smells. So is Disney using them to manipulate us into spending and feeling things? In a way, yes. That being said, it's not mind control. They're not convincing you to do something that you don't want to do or don't have to do. It's really more of a marketing tactic. Disney really understands as a company that scents are tied deeply to emotions and to memory. I mean, haven't we all smelled something and gone, oh, that smells like my Nana's house? Or whatever, because scents are attached to memories. They can trigger nostalgia, they can trigger happiness, they can even trigger hunger if you haven't eaten in a while and you don't realize you're hungry, and then you smell something really good. It's gonna remind you that you're hungry. It might encourage you to get in the line or buy the product or go grab that snack. That being said, Disney is in no way trying to control you or use mind control on you. They just know a good marketing tactic when they see one. Our number 6 conspiracy theory is actually going to be about a disappearing character over in Tomorrowland. So if you've ever been to Tomorrowland, you may or may not have been on the Carousel of Progress. The Carousel of Progress, one of my favorites, is actually the longest running stage show. It was premiering at the World's Fair. It's very fun and it takes you all through technology and kind of how it evolves and impacts our lives. That being said, in one scene, the wife, Sarah, is doing the laundry and she has help from a little girl. That is the last time you see this child. She's not in the show again, which is really strange because almost every other character, I'm pretty sure, is in the rest of the show. Now, after doing our research online, there are a few theories that people kind of like throw around. One is that people think maybe she's a neighbor's child who's come over to help. The second is people accuse her of being a ghost. It's a real thing they accuse her of, being a ghost. And then the third, and arguably most popular, is pretty morbid. A lot of people online like to say that their favorite conspiracy theory of what happens to this little girl is that she died from a disease or a plague, which I don't think that's accurate. But what do I know? Disney has never offered an official explanation as to who this child is or what happens to her. I personally like to believe it's the daughter when she's young and in the next scene she grows up, although you could argue that. But the son grows up, so I think that makes the most sense. But this is just, you know, a Disney conspiracy theory online. She also might just be a storyline that they had and then they decided to scrape and just never tie in. The Carousel of Progress saw many different iterations. It's been through a handful of changes, and frankly, as much as I love it, it's probably time for another one. Technology has changed quite a bit. And so a lot of people think, and most agree, that the real answer is that she was just a part of an older storyline. My theory, and the one I believe, is that she's the daughter when she's young and then the daughter grows up. But also, it's been a hot second since I've seen the show because, you know, I live in Tennessee. So I could be wrong. Next up, number 7, a lot of people accuse Disney of using your Magic Band to sell and store your data. This is the key to selling and storing your data and tracking you. And also it's upside down. It isn't helpful. When you do go to Disney, you have the option of having a Magic Band. I have many Magic Bands. It is not just the way to get into the parks. It can hold your ticket. It also can hold your lightning lanes. You can pay with this bad boy. Sometimes, if you're better than me, it's charged and it lights up and interacts with the attractions, the statues, and the shows around you. There is so much that happens with this lovely little Magic Band. In fact, it is a wearable RFID. Pretty neat. And that is what holds all of your information. It holds your park tickets, your hotel information, everything is in this RFID. It's super convenient. A lot of people love them. However, there has been a conspiracy theory surrounding these since they started way back when. Magic Bands have been around for a long time. I actually still have I think I have one of every version that they've made so far. This is one of the latest, and there has been a conspiracy theory about these for literal years. A lot of people fear and claim that Disney uses these to track you, monitor your habits, and even predict some of your behavior while you're in the parks. Honestly, they're not that wrong. I mean, it's not really a lie. That's kind of true. However, it's not as creepy or convoluted or evil as the theory might suggest. The first thing that's important to know is Magic Bands do not contain a GPS. That's what a lot of people claim. They do not. They do not track your physical location in real time. Disney cannot look up and say, okay, Emma is here in Magic Kingdom. That's not how that works. That being said, they do actually track your entry and your exits at rides. They do track your purchase history. They track your resort activity. They track your lightning lane usage and your wait times with those. And they record your photos on rides when you pass by that camera. So that's why when you get off of Space Mountain, sometimes you have to go tap for your photo, and then other times it'll just pop up on your My Disney Experience app. That was just my first option. Yeah, I know you can tap for your Space Mountain photo. You get what I'm trying to say. Space Mountain, we're getting too lost on Space Mountain. The data is intended to kind of create your personal profile, help crowd flow, and help Disney understand what guests are actually doing in the park. It also is gonna help kind of understand what promotions and offers might be appropriate for you. So like if you're buying Lightning Lane every single time, they might not need to promote Lightning Lane to you. You're already purchasing it. However, if you're not, maybe you're the kind of person that they want to promote Lightning Lane to, and they can kind of tell based on this because you've not used it once. All of this does attempt to optimize your experience. That is true. Disney does not sell this data, okay? Look me in the eyes, Disney is not selling this data. They are trying to improve guest experience. They also want to understand what's gonna make them the most money. Both can be true at the same time, and rather than selling your data, they're collecting it to understand what guests are actually paying for and what they actually are willing to pay for. Okay, number 8, a lot of people accuse Kylo Ren of being the Wicked Witch. That is true. It is not really a super secret that Disney does reuse animatronics after attractions have closed or when it's time to make new attractions and they need some kind of easy fixes, I will say. Like, you can go through Spaceship Earth and there are some presidents in there that were no longer utilized in the Hall of Presidents and they are now living in Spaceship Earth. That is true. One of the most intriguing examples of this conspiracy theory, though, is a lot of people believe that Kylo Ren on Rise of the Resistance in Hollywood Studios is the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. If you don't know, previously there was a ride called the Great Movie Ride, and I miss it every day, and it was one of my personal favorites, and I mourn it. I mourn it. And on the Great Movie Ride, they would take you through, you guessed it, the great movies of history, one of which was The Wizard of Oz. At the time, the Wicked Witch was one of the most advanced animatronics Disney had ever made. It was incredible, and I absolutely loved it. So once the Great Movie Ride closed in 2017 to make way for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, a lot of people were like, what are they gonna do with that? It's such a good animatronic, it's so nice. And a lot of people decided when Rise of the Resistance opened in 2019 or so that that's what had happened to her. She became Kylo Ren. When you compare the movements side by side, they do look similar. So could Kylo Ren be the Wicked Witch of the West? I mean, we do love a good villain. Both, you could argue, are iconic. But over the years, Disney has developed 3 different kinds of animatronics. The first is audio animatronics, the A1s. These are the simple figures with more limited motion. So think things like Peter Pan's flight in Magic Kingdom. Those are gonna be your A1s. They're, you know, we got an elbow movement. That'll be an animatronic, A1. The A100s have been around since about the 1980s, and they kind of started the trend of more advanced movement. So people like Jack Sparrow over in Pirates of the Caribbean and the Wicked Witch of the West, who was on the Great Movie Ride. Finally, we have the A1000s, which is the most advanced that we currently see. So think of things like the Shaman from Navi River Journey, which cost $23 million, by the way, you know. So pretty advanced and pretty pricey. While Disney has technically not admitted what class Kylo Ren falls into, a lot of people do believe that he falls into that A1000s category. He has a lot of fluid motion, he has a lot more lifelike presence, and to be honest, he breaks down a lot more because he is more intricate than, say, the more simple animatronics. So a lot of people believe because of those reasons that he is one of the A1000s. A lot of people do still continue to theorize though that at the very least, parts of the Wicked Witch were used to create Kylo Ren because of the similar movement. The Wicked Witch was one of Disney's most advanced A100s at the time, and it's pretty pricey, and they have a history of reusing animatronics, so never say never. It's not impossible that they could have used part of this technology. However, I'm not quite sure that I believe it. There's no hard proof that Kylo Ren is the Wicked Witch of the West. However, at the very least, he definitely owes her a nice big thank you because she was the great green predecessor and she led to where we are today with animatronics. So thank you to the Wicked Witch and to the Great Movie Ride. Just know I'm keeping your spirit alive. Okay, for number 9, we're gonna get into the creepy side of conspiracy theories, and a lot of people believe that Pirates of the Caribbean used real human bones, and it continues to this day. And this one is creepy, IMO, in my opinion. While a lot of people believe that there are real human bones on Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that that is unlikely to still be true. However, at one point on Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean, it was probably true. Pirates of the Caribbean, when it was first conceptualized, was really going to be a wax figure museum. And a lot of people on the Disney team really knew, like, that's not gonna sell. That's really not, I don't think, what this needs to be. Once they went to the 1964 World's Fair and they took the Carousel of Progress and they had great moments with Mr. Lincoln and people found those figures to be incredibly believable, they kind of segued into creating Pirates of the Caribbean using those same figures rather than doing the, albeit bad, wax figure idea. They wanted to use the high capacity ride system from It's a Small World so that way a lot of people could be on it and see this really fun, new, exciting technology. It did debut in 1967 and Imagineers worked tirelessly to make all of those bones and pirates treasure and all the fun stuff that you see on the ride. One thing that they really struggled to create was the human bones, the human skeletons. In the 60s, the technology was just not really there to make them look believable. The solution was that supposedly they used real human bones from UCLA's medical center to make them look very realistic. I think at one point, like 1 or 2 of them, this was true. I have read that before. As the years went on, obviously, they replaced anything that was real at one point. None of them are real human bones now. However, that conspiracy theory still persists to this day. I actually heard someone the last time I was at Disneyland tell someone in line that the bones on the ride were real. They are not real. Were they at one point? Yes. Are they now? No. And it wasn't every bone. It was like, I think one major piece. No human remains is what the point I'm trying to get across. No human remains. One of the surprising true conspiracy theories is that Disney created its own government at one point. Did you know that? Disney had its own government. Disney couldn't write laws, they couldn't have secret trials, they couldn't like legally detain people, no arrests, but they did have their own government. In 1967, along with the state of Florida, Disney and Florida worked together to create the Reedy Creek District. The Reedy Creek Improvement District was like the full name RCID, and it basically was just a special taxing district that gave Disney the authority to control the land that they owned in Central Florida. So if they needed permits, Disney could approve them through their own governing board. If they needed certain things done for construction, they could approve those things. Whereas typically you would have to go through the state of Florida to get those done, and it would make the process longer and harder. It allowed the company to kind of control a little bit of everything, from building codes to water treatment to emergency services. They even had their own fire department, even their infrastructure, all of that they could control without having to go through the state or other local authorities. Originally, this setup was kind of to create what Walt Disney wanted Epcot to be, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. But even after the plans kind of changed, the district did stay in place. For over 50 years, Disney was able to actually continue with Reedy Creek, and it only recently in the last few years was dissolved by the state of Florida. It was basically its own little municipal government where they could literally do their construction projects, they could issue bonds, and they could operate with very, very little outside interference. That was dissolved a few years ago, and now it kind of operates a little bit differently, but for a long time, Disney did have its own government. Next up, a lot of people believe that Disney and Pepsi have bad blood. Have you ever wondered why it's only Coca-Cola products in the park? Have you ever thought about that? It's almost every single Disney park worldwide. They exclusively use Coke. Well, Disney has a long-standing contract with the Coca-Cola company, but a lot of people thought it was because they had beef with Pepsi. A lot of people point to the fact that Disney did at one point have a complicated past with Pepsi, and that their long-standing partnership with Coca-Cola, it's not a business decision, it's a personal one. Well, either way, it doesn't matter. I prefer Coke. According to the theory, Disney's partnership with Pepsi and their complicated history actually started in the 1964 World's Fair era. When Disney struggled to produce the pavilion that they wanted to bring to the New York's World Fair, supposedly the board member Joan Crawford, very famous woman, allegedly pulled the strings to allow Disney in at the last minute because Pepsi was struggling. The result of that became It's a Small World, which we all know and love. The charming little boat ride that shows we are all the same in our hearts, and it really is a small world after all, even with all of our differences. After the fair though, Pepsi actually removed themselves as a sponsor of the attraction. They claimed it was an embarrassment and that it lacked product placement on the ride. When the ride moved over to Disneyland, Disney actually removed any trace that was left of Pepsi's involvement. And they also actually secured a new investor, which was the Bank of America. Soon after, Pepsi was removed from the park entirely. Once Pepsi was removed, Coke expanded dramatically throughout the parks, much to my personal enjoyment. A lot of people believed that Disney did not stop selling Pepsi because of this amazing deal that Coca-Cola gave them, but rather because Pepsi made it personal and it was really just a big old beef and a grudge that Disney was holding. So the next time you're kind of in Fantasyland, you're sipping on your Coke, look around, listen to Small World, think about Pepsi, and think about the fact that some people believe that Disney absolutely refuses to let go of this feud after that many years. Either way, I'm a Coca-Cola girl, so I think it works out. When I read this next one online, number 12, I literally did not believe that this was a real conspiracy theory, but apparently people believe it. It has long been rumored that the famous Disney turkey legs are not turkey, but they are in fact emu meat. I didn't even like saying it out loud, but that's what a lot of people believe. The theory claims that because the legs are so massive, it's not possible that it's actually from a turkey, and that Disney substitute emu meat because they are similar in taste and in texture. I hate that thought. Supposedly it was because these were so in demand and the turkeys just weren't big enough. They needed bigger, they needed more, so put the emo in the game. The theory really blew up and got super big in the 2010s, and a lot of people would get online and claim that cast members were secretly confirming it when they were not at work. In truth and in real life, Disney themselves have actually debunked this one. You know it has to be bad for Disney to come out and say, like, no, that's not true. Multiple sources from Disney and Disney chefs have confirmed that the turkey meat is actually turkey sourced from male domestic turkeys. They are naturally larger than a lot of the turkeys that you might find, so that's why the legs are able to be so big without actually being emu meat. I don't like saying it. Each leg can actually weigh over a pound, which is why they feel so massive and so hard to eat, but they're also great for sharing and budget eating in Disney. So while the theory to some is fun, I am so glad it's just a theory and I don't like the thought of it. Sorry to the turkeys, I guess I don't mind if it's your leg, but I do mind if it's an emu leg. Number 13 is for our Haunted Mansion fans. This one is actually really fun, and I think I believe this one. A lot of people believe the conspiracy that Constance is the one pushing you out the window. So it has long been speculated that Haunted Mansion is not just a ride, but it's actually an attraction that makes you part of the story. Now, when this ride first started, I don't know that that was kind of the vibe, but now people really believe it. So if you've ever been on the attraction, or if you haven't, there is a scene where you go through this attic and you see these creepy portraits of all these men who have married one woman, and she's all of them for money and power or whatever reason she comes up with. Her name is Constance Hatchaway, and right after you go through the attic and you pass the ghoulish bride, you kind of turn backwards and you go back down into the graveyard. A lot of people believe that the moment your buggy turns backwards and you start going down is the moment that you die in the storyline, because Constance is pushing you out of the window. Supposedly she's pushing you out right out the attic window, straight into the afterlife, and you're landing right in the graveyard. Once you land in the graveyard, there are tons of ghouls and all things in between around, singing and dancing and having a really nice and fun time. But you see ghosts the entire time you're in the mansion, and up until you're in the graveyard, you see it the whole time. So a lot of people do believe Constance is pushing you out the window. She's axed all the husbands and now you're next on the chopping block. However, this scene is really just to kind of change the vibe of the ride. So the attic is a very creepy, it's probably the scariest part of the ride for a lot of people, whereas the graveyard scene is an intentional shift to lean more on comedy and lightness, and that's where you hear that really famous Grim Grinning Ghost song. The ride system does kind of confirm this theory. I think you can believe what you want. Disney has never confirmed or denied that Constance is pushing you out and killing you. So I think this one's just fun for all of us to speculate on. They do say that there's always room for one more, but if there's multiple people in your dune buggy, then do you have to fight over who gets to stay? I don't know. I think this one's fun. I have long believed that that's the storyline. You didn't just ride through the Haunted Mansion, you actually never left it because it's your new home. And when you do leave, a ghost follows you home, which I think is sweet and thoughtful, and I just hope it's not Constance that followed us. Our last one is all about brain-eating amoeba. Number 14 takes us to the river country. When Walt Disney World first opened in 1971, they weren't just trying to do a park, they weren't just trying to have a little bit of fun, they were trying to do a full resort destination vacation. They didn't want this to be one day, they wanted this to be a full vacation experience. Back then, Disney only had Magic Kingdom and a few of the resorts, so it really was not what we know and love today, so they kind of had to get a little bit more creative in how to make guests stay for longer than just a day or two. They had golf courses, they had campgrounds, and in 1976, they opened the River Country. River Country was on Bay Lake, kind of near the Fort Wilderness area of it all, if you can kind of picture that in your mind's eye. And it was built to feel almost like an old-fashioned swimming hole. It had boulders, it had rope swings, it had a natural shoreline. It was really like a good old swimming hole that you might play in with your friends. And I did go from swimming hole to swimming hole because the second one felt more appropriate. What really made this one stand out though is it used filtered water straight from Bay Lake. And if you've ever been on Bay Lake, you know that you probably don't want to be swimming in that. For years, this one was a massive hit. Families really loved it. It was a pretty popular attraction. And then in 1980, absolute tragedy struck and an 11-year-old boy passed away. He passed away from something called, I'm gonna read it because I'm gonna mispronounce it anyways. Can we actually put it on the screen? Naegleria fowleri? That's supposed to be the real word. But the cause essentially was a brain-eating amoeba that is found in warm, fresh water. Officially, Disney never confirmed if that boy actually contracted the amoeba from River Country. In fact, the park actually operated for 2 more decades after that. However, whispers started running, conspiracy theories started getting really big, and by 2001 they had made the decision to quietly close it for the season, not permanently yet. That being said, it never reopened. There was no big announcement. They never really acknowledged it. It just went quiet and they did not reopen that part of Disney World. This is when the conspiracy theories absolutely blew up, that this is why they had closed because of brain-eating amoeba in 2001. Disney did address this and said that it was just a seasonal demand decision. The newer parks like Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon were definitely more popular than River Country, but the theory of the brain-eating amoeba absolutely went crazy, and it was really hard for people to shut down, and it still persists to this day. All of that being said, the truth is probably a lot less sinister than what people make it out to be. The park continued to operate for 20 years after this incident, and there were no other confirmed cases the entire time that park remained open. The theory really persists online. People still talk about it to this day. That being said, most likely this one we can more easily debunk. And there you have it. Some creepy, some fun, some absolutely insane Disney conspiracy theories. Which one do you like the most? Tell me your favorite Disney conspiracy theories down in the comments, because I know there are so many more that we've not even talked about right now. While you're there in the comments, go ahead and put this secret code so that way I know you watched and we learned all about these conspiracy theories together. If you want, you can like and subscribe too. We do content almost every single day and we are super serious about fun, so make sure you stick around with All Ears for more.